Alrighty, YouTube, now that all the engine mounts are done for the front of the 2.5, we need to get on to mounting the second half of this drivetrain mess, that being the crossmember. Now, you have seen me cut a rather large hole in the floor already. I actually need to cut more out of this, mainly up around this area, like a little bit lower, and then all that's gotta come out, just so I have some clearance for the top of the transmission and some sensors that are up there. And then I'll end up redoing this all nicely once it's all done. And then when I get to the drive shaft, eventually when I get that ordered, I'll have to redo some of this to about here, because the transmission sits a good 2-3 inches higher than the rear end. So it just needs that little extra clearance to come down and make it into here. I'm just gonna jack up the transmission to where it's supposed to sit, and then we'll go from there. All you're seeing me do here is with the angle finder. I think I've shown you once or twice before. I'm comparing the output of the transmission to the input of the rear end, making sure that they're parallel to each other. A lot of drivetrains will have the transmission pointing down and the rear end pointing up. That way your net angle is kind of zero. I'm kind of doing the same thing, but instead of having offset, they're gonna be parallel, except the rear end is lower and the transmission is higher. So there's your running angle for the U-joints. Simple concept, it's just the reverse of what most people end up doing. I also don't mind laying on the floor because it is 33 degrees out and it is nice and cold down here. Alright, we are right at 0.0 there. It's zeroed on the rear end, so they're as close as they're going to get. Okay, so you can just see the transmission right there is starting to touch. To show you from underneath, from the engine bay side, you can really tell. There's an absolute load of clearance to the bell housing in the trans tunnel on this side. It starts to get really tight, kind of right up in this area. It's good, but then you look at the other side, and you can see here we are almost touching. Not quite, but we're getting there. The one place that's got me really concerned is there is a sensor right here is extremely tight. That's actually almost touching the floor there. And then there's actually a switch right here for the reverse lights that needs a little bit of room. So basically where the floor starts to transition here, I'm just gonna cut it all out and redo it all. All right, here's how much I ended up cutting out of that floor. There's a giant gaping hole, and you can see even still there's hardly any clearance to that bell housing. That at least gives me a good starting point to rebuild all that from. For now, we're gonna move on to the crossmember. Here's the two options. We have this one here, which is out of a 4x4 S10. This is the factory one that came out of Rat 10. You can see the geometry is slightly different. They mount in roughly the same position. I did put this one in here, and it sits like this much below the frame, which I'm not happy with, because I think I only have like that much ground clearance anyways, so that's an instant no. But it does use a different style of transmission mount. This is obviously way beefier than the factory style mount that most V8 transmissions use. So I'm kind of thinking I want to go with this mount and build a mount off of this crossmember, because the mount for that transmission is already sitting way behind this anyways. So I can build my own box off it to mount that guy to, and then adapt that onto the transmission, and I think we're gonna be set. We're not using this one. We're gonna give it the literal boot. So I got that factory crossmember front bit cut off of there just for now, because we're not gonna be needing it. So I'm gonna stick this under the truck, bolt it in place, and we'll show you what we're gonna do. I only really need to bolt in one side because the other half sits on like a little shelf. We're gonna just put it up there. Oh goodness. Alrighty, well, I think it went like that. That seems the most correct. Using the right bolts doesn't really matter. I just needed to hold it in place. How terrible does that look? What a weird mount I'm gonna have to make for that though. It's in a pretty good spot laterally though, to make a little plate come off of this. Huh. I don't mind that. This is actually gonna be a hell of a lot easier than I expected it to be. I was kind of hyping this up like it was gonna be way worse in my head, but let me show you this. So in short, I need to make an adapter from the transmission here to this mount, and then I need to make a way to mount this back to the crossmember. Mounting this to the crossmember is gonna be simple. I just need to plate the width of the 2 bolt holes. It'll come out this far, and then it'll angle back down to the main mount. I might actually just set it on top of this and then go back down. So just like that little flag piece that I cut off. And this guy will probably sit, yeah, let's just say it'll be sitting right on top of there. I just need to make a teeny little adapter piece to go up to the transmission, and we'll be good. Alrighty, I saved you all of the cutting and fabrication work into just these little pieces here because that's not very entertaining. Let's just cut, drill holes, measure, blah, blah, blah. What you really want to see is all the welding that's going to happen on this crossmember. Here's kind of the general assembly. So this plate here is meant to replace this one. So instead of coming off the crossmember the original way it was going, this will then be going off backwards. This obviously has 2 bolt holes for the 4x4 transmission mount that I'm using for just beefiness. This guy will go on here like this. So that'll be on there much like that. And then I'll have 2 gussets coming down, and I'll probably notch them for that tube as well, just so that's got a lot of support. I might do 3, we'll go 1 on each side and 1 in the middle, just because I want to be sure that the transmission is going to be supported enough. These 2 I can bolt on to here and there. This will bolt on to the 2 bolts from the transmission. Those 2 right there, just up on the bottom. I'll have to make these wedge shape pieces to weld onto that once this is sitting at whatever height it's supposed to be at, and we'll be good to go. I can at least get it started from up here. Now to get this centered the way I want with the transmission, I am going to need to notch that plate just a little bit. Alright, the last thing I want to be is under here with a sweater because it's like 30 degrees out in Canada right now. Alberta, that is. So I'm going to try and do this pretty quick. What if I just do this? Ah, one way to ground it, right? What the hell? Update, I ended up taking the crossmember out. Now you can see just how ugly of a notch I accidentally made. I figured this mount would have been way farther back on this tube, so that's what I clearanced that for. It wasn't, but this will work. And then while I have it out, I'm gonna make the gussets for this as well. So I will fill this in, probably with the piece that I cut out, honestly. Notch a little better, so I will weld it all the way around, back in there. Then we'll put my 2 little gussets from here down to there, and on the other side, and then I might do 1 in the middle just for some extra structure, because I don't really trust my fabrication all that well. I didn't turn my camera on when I started that weld, but it turned out pretty good, I think. It's fully welded top and bottom. Now I can go about filling in this stupid hole that I accidentally made and making the gussets. Alright, it looks disgusting, but I got that little piece welded back in here. All the welds actually turned out pretty damn good. Just gonna make some quick templates for the gussets and we'll be good to go. And there we go. There we go. Much better. Alrighty, we got my 3 little gussets there made out of steel. We're gonna go ahead and weld these in place and then start getting this thing back in there. Oh, a ground clamp usually helps. Well, you want to see how this turned out? Yeah, that's embarrassing. I don't know, I must have messed up when I was measuring the plate that I welded on the Crossmember, and because that's terrible. Or, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't looking at it properly. Either way, that's gross. I'm gonna do a jump cut when this looks a little more presentable, and we'll see how we do. Well, here's what that turned into. I'm not happy with it at all. All it's gonna do is just bolt the transmission to the mount. The mount is made out of less structural steel than this. It's like half the size, I want to say. So I'm gonna be happy with that. No one's ever gonna have to look at it besides me. So I'm just gonna put it in and call it good. I got a little excited and installed that transmission adapter before I turn my camera on, so let's just crawl down here and show you what we got. So there you can see that stupid adapter in all of its ugliness. It's not terrible. It does the job. The Crossmember's all in there, and it actually looks pretty good. And if you notice, there is no jack holding anything up. Check this out. You will notice Rat 10 is currently on the ground. It is suspended on all four wheels, engine, transmission, rear end, all mounted in the truck, sprung under its own weight. Rear end bounces around, it's just missing some shocks. The front bounces around nice. Check this out. The truck rolls on its own wheels. How crazy is that? Now, the engine and transmission still does have to come out because I need to sort out a clutch, flywheel, and throwout bearing. I'm not exactly sure what I need to do yet. I have a flywheel over here for the engine. It's the right diameter, and I know the factory Corvette clutch will bolt onto it, but it is a pull style, and I need a push style. So I just need to find a clutch and pressure plate that's the right diameter that will bolt onto this flywheel, and we'll be pretty good. And then I can get a hydraulic throwout bearing to completely negate the need for a fork. It'll just make my life way easier. Now, where do we go from here is back to the rear end, actually, because I need the engine and trans before I take it out again, sitting in the truck so I have the majority of the weight suspended so that when I make the links for the rear end here, they're gonna be as close to ride height with weight on them as they're gonna get. Apart from that, that's gonna be it for the drivetrain installation. It went okay. It was a little bit of a fight in some ways, but now we can move on to different things. So I hope you enjoyed that fiasco. Stay tuned for more. It's coming very soon.